You are paying for internet right now, every single month, and you're receiving maybe 40% of what you actually paid for, not because of your building, not because of the weather outside, not because of your devices or your plan, because 3 companies made a deliberate, calculated decision years ago that you would never find out the truth. And the part that should genuinely shock you, the part that makes this almost unbelievable, is that the fix sitting on the other side of this information costs you absolutely nothing. $0, not a single cent. It is buried inside a menu your ISP prays every morning you never open. A menu they have actively, deliberately, and systematically worked to hide from the very moment you signed your first contract with them. A menu that, once you know it exists, once you understand what lies inside it, will permanently change the way you think about the internet you have been paying for every single month for years. I'm going to walk you through that menu today, step by step, setting by setting. And before this video ends, the way you look at your monthly internet bill will be forever altered. But first, you need to understand the scale of what is at stake here. The 3 biggest internet providers in the United States generate a combined annual revenue of over $300 billion. They have spent tens of millions lobbying, funding think tanks, and quietly removing information from the public internet to make sure you never see what I'm about to show you. Because if even 10% of their customers made these changes tonight, their entire revenue model collapses. Not weakens, not shrinks, collapses. This is not speculation. This is documented history. And it starts long before Comcast ever existed, before any of these companies existed, before Verizon absorbed every regional competitor in your market, before AT&T became the regulatory captured giant it is today. There were engineers, brilliant, chronically underpaid, deeply idealistic engineers who built the earliest version of the internet on one foundational, non-negotiable principle: open access. The concept was radical in its simplicity. The infrastructure is shared. The speed must be equal. Every single packet of data moving through the network should be treated identically, regardless of its content, regardless of its origin, regardless of the time of day it travels. This was not just a philosophical preference. It was baked architecturally into the system. They called the principle net neutrality. And more importantly, they built the hardware to enforce it. Early consumer routers in the late 1990s and early 2000s came configured with quality of service settings fully unlocked and accessible. They came with DNS configuration options sitting in plain view on the first page of the admin interface. Transmit power controls, select band steering settings, duplex configuration options, all of it right there on the surface, exposed, accessible to any user who wanted to touch it. These engineers designed it this way intentionally. They believed you had the right to fully control the hardware sitting in your own home. And for a brief, luminous period, it worked exactly as intended. People who found these settings were pulling speeds that made everything around them look broken by comparison. Small businesses discovered they could run connections that should have cost thousands per month for almost nothing extra. The knowledge moved fast. It spread across early internet forums, across bulletin boards, across the ancestor sites of modern social media. People shared these settings like contraband, passing them from user to user in threads that lit up overnight. Because in every way that mattered, this was contraband. Free performance that a business model not yet fully formed was already counting on you never receiving. Then came the acquisitions, the consolidations, the slow, deliberate, extraordinarily well-funded effort to erase what those engineers built. The ISPs moved strategically. They acquired router manufacturers outright. They negotiated directly with Netgear, with Linksys, with Asus, to ship firmware that hid the most impactful settings behind secondary menus, inside obscure tabs, buried inside interfaces that required you to already know exactly what you needed before you could ever locate it. The forums started disappearing. Threads vanished, engineers retired or signed non-disclosure agreements and went permanently quiet. An entirely new generation of internet users grew up never knowing these settings existed, never knowing that the performance they were being told was normal was anything but, never knowing they were being quietly, systematically, and profitably robbed. Before I pull back the curtain completely and show you exactly what was buried and precisely how to reclaim it, I want to tell you about something I have been building for this channel. I put together a complete resource document, not a teaser, not a summary, a full, detailed technical reference that goes significantly deeper than what this video can cover. It contains the complete list of suppressed router configuration changes with exact menu locations for every major router brand currently sold in North America. It contains actual, ready-to-file FCC complaint templates, pre-written in the language the agency is required to respond to. And it contains a full sourced breakdown of every throttling case that has been taken to court, litigated, and settled for real monetary damages against real ISPs. The link is sitting in the description of this video right now. Grab it before the video ends. The ISPs are counting on you to close this tab before you get there. Do not close this tab. Because what I'm about to explain next, the actual technical mechanics behind why these hidden settings work, is where the story stops being about corporate greed and starts being about physics. And physics is where this becomes genuinely impossible to argue with. Stay right here, because the science behind this is where things get truly undeniably shocking. Your ISP does not deliver internet to your home and simply walk away. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of how this industry operates. Every major broadband provider in the United States uses a technology called Deep Packet Inspection. The abbreviation is DPI. The concept beneath the technical name is straightforward to the point of being insulting. Every piece of data traveling through your connection, every video frame, every web request, every message, gets examined in transit, labeled, categorized by content type. And then, depending on what the data is and what time of day you happen to be sending it, it gets deliberately, algorithmically, and intentionally slowed down before it reaches you. This process is throttling. It is not a network management necessity. It is a revenue protection mechanism. And it is running on your connection right now. The academic evidence for this is not obscure. A study conducted jointly by Northeastern University and the University of Massachusetts Amherst analyzed over 100,000 real mobile connections across every major carrier in the United States. The findings were not ambiguous, not open to interpretation. Every single major ISP in the study was actively throttling specific categories of traffic. Video streaming was being reduced to fractions of the advertised paid speed. Gaming traffic was systematically deprioritized during peak evening hours. Customers paying for 100 megabits per second were measurably receiving 30 to 40 megabits during the hours they most wanted to use what they were paying for. But here is what changes the entire equation. Your router, the physical device blinking on a shelf in your home right this second, contains hardware designed and certified to fight back against this exact mechanism. Consumer routers, built in the last 8 years, contain quality of service processing engines capable of repackaging your outbound traffic before it ever reaches the inspection point inside your ISP's infrastructure. They contain DNS resolver settings that allow you to completely bypass your ISP as default name servers, the same servers that harvest and monetize your entire browsing history as a secondary revenue stream, while simultaneously slowing your lookup times as a consequence of their logging architecture. They contain transmit power settings, shipping from the factory set to between 40 and 60% of the hardware's actual certified transmit capability. The chipset inside your router can broadcast stronger. The engineers who designed it built it to broadcast stronger. The firmware governing it simply will not allow that by default, because default protects the status quo. Default is the product. And there is a frequency allocation issue mainstream technology media has never adequately covered. Your router broadcasts simultaneously on 2 radio frequencies, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Most consumer routers ship with a default feature called band steering activated at the factory. The marketing language makes it sound like an intelligent dynamic optimization system, routing each device to whichever frequency offers the best performance in real time. The reality is considerably less flattering. Band steering offloads the routing decision to the router's least computationally expensive algorithm, which defaults to placing the majority of your devices on the 2.4 gigahertz band because doing so reduces the processor load and thermal output of the router hardware. Your 5 gigahertz band, faster by a significant margin, far less congested by neighboring networks, capable of throughput that makes 2.4 gigahertz feel like dial-up, operates at a fraction of its capacity while you sit 3 feet away wondering why your broadband subscription feels sluggish. Now let us address the most important question this information raises. If this is real, and it is real, every element documented and reproducible, why is it still not common knowledge in 2025? Why has no major publication run this story the way it deserves to be run? The answer comes down to market structure and political capture, and both are more extreme in American broadband than in almost any other consumer industry in the developed world. Approximately 80% of American households have access to exactly one provider for high-speed wired internet service. One choice, not two. Not a competitive market with pricing pressure. One monopoly provider with no commercial incentive whatsoever to deliver what it advertises. Because there is no competitor to lose customers to if it does not. The regulatory agency nominally responsible for enforcing consumer protection standards in this industry, the Federal Communications Commission, has been staffed under successive administrations by attorneys cycling directly from the major ISPs into regulatory leadership positions and back out again. This pattern is so thoroughly documented and consistently repeated that it carries a formal name in policy literature, the revolving door. When Ajit Pai was appointed to lead the FCC and subsequently dismantled the net neutrality regulations, protecting consumers from precisely the throttling I just described, his previous employer was Verizon Communications. This is not an allegation. It is a public employment record, verifiable in 30 seconds. Between 2019 and 2023, the combined broadband industry spent over $270 million on direct lobbying of federal legislators. The legislative priorities that money purchased were consistent and specific, against municipal broadband programs that would have given communities ownership of their own infrastructure, against open access mandates that would have forced real competition onto existing cable networks, against any disclosure requirement that would have made ISPs legally responsible for showing customers at the point of sale what percentage of advertised speed they would actually receive in real-world conditions. That last one is worth sitting with for a moment. They spent millions specifically to kill a bill that would have required them to show you what you were buying before you bought it, because the gap between what they sell and what they deliver is the product. The confusion is not incidental. The confusion is the business model. The residential broadband sector in the United States generates approximately $94 billion in annual revenue. That is the number behind every locked firmware setting, every buried menu, every deleted forum thread, and every regulatory appointment made by someone who used to cash checks from Comcast. $94 billion is what depends on you never finding that admin panel. Here is exactly what you're going to do about it, right now, tonight. Open a web browser on any device currently connected to your home network. In the address bar, at the very top of your browser, not the search bar, the address bar, type one of these two addresses and press enter, 192.168.1.1. Or if that does not load a page, try 192.168.0.1. One of these two addresses is the gateway to your router's administration interface. When the login prompt appears, the username field almost universally accepts the word admin. The password is almost certainly either the word admin, the word password, or a unique code printed on a sticker attached to the underside of your physical router. Look at the bottom of the router right now. It is almost certainly there. Once you are inside the panel, you are going to make 4 specific changes. First, find the DNS or Internet Settings section. Your current DNS addresses were assigned automatically by your ISP, and they are almost certainly your ISP's own servers. Change the primary DNS to 1.1.1.1. That is Cloudflare's public resolver. It consistently outperforms ISP. WOS assigned DNS servers on lookup speed and independent benchmark testing, and does not log or commercially monetize your browsing queries. Set the secondary DNS to 8.8.8.8. That is Google's public resolver, providing a reliable fallback. Second, find your wireless settings and locate band steering. It may be labeled Smart Connect or Auto Band Selection, depending on your manufacturer. Whatever it is called, disable it completely. Then navigate separately into your 5 GHz band configuration and find the channel bandwidth setting. It will read either 40 MHz or 80 MHz. Set it to the highest available value. Then manually connect your primary high usage devices, your laptop, your streaming television, your main phone, to your 5 GHz network specifically. Third, find the advanced wireless settings and locate transmit power. It will be set to medium or automatic from the factory. Change it to high or maximum. Your router's hardware is certified to operate at this power level. The conservative factory setting exists to reduce customer support calls about neighboring network interference. It does not protect your hardware. It does not protect you. Fourth, find quality of service settings. Enable QoS if it is currently off. Enter your actual subscribe, download, and upload speeds in the configuration fields. This allows your router's internal traffic management to operate against an accurate reference point, measurably reducing the real-world impact of external throttling on your day-to-day connection. The total time for these 4 changes is approximately 11 minutes. The total cost is $0. For most users, the real world performance improvement falls between 30 and 90% on existing hardware and existing plans. The one honest limitation worth naming is that maximum transmit power increases your router's operating temperature modestly over extended periods. Ensure your router has 1 inch of clearance on all sides. That is the complete limitation. That is the entire trade-off. You watched every second of this video. You are still here. That means something real. It means you are not the person this system was designed to produce. The ISPs, the lobbyists, the revolving door regulators, the router manufacturers shipping deliberately limited firmware. Every component of that ecosystem was engineered with one strategic objective: to produce a consumer who never asks why, who pays the bill every month, accepts whatever speed arrives, and never opens the admin panel. That was the plan for you. And you just opted out of it entirely. Every single person you share this video with is one more household reclaiming performance they have already purchased and paid for month after month. Every share is one more family that stops quietly subsidizing a $94 billion industry built on manufactured confusion. Every new subscriber is one more person inside the information they spent $270 million to keep outside of. Subscribe if you want to keep receiving knowledge that real money was spent to suppress, not theory, not conjecture. Documented, sourced, legally established, and completely actionable tonight. They deleted the forums where engineers shared this freely. They buried the settings inside interfaces built to be invisible. They erased the principle of open, equal, free internet from an entire generation of users who never knew it existed. You found it anyway. You know it now. Make absolutely certain the next person does too.